Welcome, welcome, welcome to Haaseline Entertainment, Revelation of the Spirit. We've been talking a lot about marketing lately, but today we have a guest, somebody that we're working with, the great producer, actor, and has many businesses. But today we'll be talking a little bit about Gregg and about the World Series of Arm Wrestling and his new streaming service, Radiate. And I'm going to let Gregg in and we're going to get started right away. Thank you for being here. And we look forward to hearing about Gregg's life and what's going on there. Gregg Sharp,
Almost there, Doug. I'm getting to the camera here.
we're good. We're live, ready to go. How you doing, buddy?
I'm, I'm well. How are you?
Doing great. So I gave you a great intro. So you're like the star of the show. But it's so
Go
great to
ahead.
have you on. I use this format to interview people in the entertainment business as well as people that I'm doing business with. And I'm fortunate, as I told the audience, to be to let our hair down a little bit today. And for me, this is the first time for you to see me with the locks on. I usually have them pulled back, but uh,
I, I don't have that luxury. That escaped me many years ago, Doug.
that's all right. That's all right. So, Gregg, we're going to obviously talk about two things that we're involved in: the World Series of Arm Wrestling.
Mhm.
And we're going to talk about Radiate, the new streaming service. So I want to get to that, but part of the show is kind of getting to know we have some fun questions, and we want to get to know you a little bit. So if you can give us
All right.
just a brief resume, I know you're a producer and you've been an actor. You and I have similar backgrounds, so I think that's why we get along so well.
Well, I watched your story, Doug, and you've got some great pictures of some high level celebrities that you post time to time. I would have to Photoshop myself into those in order to have the same similar experiences. But I've been lucky enough in this industry. I think that luck is really plays the biggest part of the industry itself, right? I mean, you know it as well as I do. Timing is everything. My time in the industry really has become now. I started making some really bad films back in 1998, I think it was, back when there was no streaming platforms, and to get into Blockbuster or something like that was just it was a wing and a prayer, and never came true. And the world of entertainment has gone, nuclear, if you will, over the last, even the last 3 to 4 years, but over the last 20 years. And platforms have made it very, very easy for people to be seen. There are platforms that are creator based, there are platforms that are feature film based, and there's hybrids out there. And I think that it has given a lot of opportunity for people like myself as a producer, a director, or somebody in the entertainment business to be able to be seen, and that's the key, right? I mean, we all love what we do, but at the end of the day, how do we get seen? So, yes, I've been in the industry for 30, almost 30 years, coming up on 30 years, and I live in San Diego. The reason why I'm able to be in the industry as with the longevity, I think, is because I have other businesses. I own a construction company out there, and we have a distribution company that goes along with the entertainment industry that helps pay the bills. And uh, so the key component for me at this point, and how I've gotten here, and what we're doing is I've just been, one step at a time, building a resume to keep the luck rolling.
There you go. There
Uh,
you go. So on those movies, I know a couple of them that I'm familiar with. Tell us a little bit about Born to Hustle and Tell Me I'm the Greatest.
well, Born to Hustle was actually the lead in for me to be where I'm at today. So there's always a good story, there's always a bad story. We'll leave the bad story to the mind and imagination. But the good story is that I was in a position starting World Series of Arm Wrestling, and everybody searches for the magical distribution word, right? How do you create something, and how do you get paid, and how do you get seen? Um, and what had happened is that at a very early part of World Series of Arm Wrestling, before we even did our first season, I needed to accomplish distribution. And so I had met with some people up in LA, and one who happens to still be my partner, Kurt Ellerson, uh, and another person who's not, and that's okay. Uh, we met, and they had this avenue for distribution. So okay, there was never an arm twist, Doug, but there was the implied value was, hey, we're making a movie. It would be great if you were part of our executive staff to help us make this movie. And in lieu of that, we'll make sure that you get seen, right? I mean, so there's the friendly handshake back and forth. So I end up becoming executive producer on Born a Hustle. I actually funded the film. And it had a great cast, and it still has a great cast. I shouldn't say that. I think for the first run, getting back into the industry, it was okay. We could have done a lot of things better. We got the movie done. I think that's half the battle. We had some really attachable names to it. It's doing well. So as an investment, I have no qualms over it. But you look at your first body of work coming back in, and you say, "Wow, what would we have done differently?" Right? And so during that time, a lot of people didn't know was that I was then starting the World Series of Arm Wrestling. So we were filming both at the same time. So uh, I went on the road. They continued to do the movie, got it finished. And as we got to the end of the movie, we got it edited and got it out. It's a fun movie. I think that the funny thing for me is we thought it would be a serious movie. Uh, at the end of the day, when people left the premiere, they were like, "Wow, this is a really funny movie." And I was like, "I'll take it." I didn't want it to be a funny movie. I wanted it to be a serious movie. But if you're telling me this is a funny movie, then you know what, man, that's what we want, right? Well, we're going to run with this being a funny movie. And we had a great cast. Like I said, we had Quentin Aaron. Yeah, we had Miguel Nunez on there. We had Carlo Mendez from Parks and Rec. We had a couple of new faces in there that did well. Dominique and Veronica did well in their lead parts. And I think all the way around, we had some comedians in there. Big Citrix, he was in there. I think, when you do something like that and it comes together, it was a good experience. And why people don't realize why that was important, again, goes back to is that at that point, I realized two things. Number one, I need to choose my partners better. Kurt was a good partner, but the other one was, to be desired. And the second one was we need better distribution.
Right.
And from that point is where I started to look at Ready, Set, Go distribution and creating an entity that, gave us an opportunity to become, a full-fledged, boutique type service for feature film makers and content makers.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I was able to create a business deal at that time that someone in that peer space was having some difficulties and gave me the introductions that I needed to be able to land some real fruitful direct relationships with some major streams. And so we basically became Ready, Set, Go, or RSG distribution out of that. And really the key for us has always been on RSG is that neither Kurt nor I really go to work on any level. I'm moving my fingers here. I'm counting my fingers on any level in which RSG is paying my mortgage, right, or his mortgage. So we were able to get away from setup fees. We were able to get away from, companies that charge, or require you to pay X amount of P&A. We became very straightforward. Here is what we can do. We can present you. We can get you here. We can get you there. If they accept you, here's how you're paid. You don't owe us anything. We take a percentage of your AVOD or revenue,
Right.
and that's it, right? And make it simple. I think people have really gravitated to that.
Yeah. So
And
I want to get the World Series. I want to get the Radiate, but I got one more thing. If you go on IBDM, the one thing I love is when you put yourself in there, and you put somebody else in, it tells you there's a connecting some people you know. Now, I don't know this person, but we had one connection on
okay.
IBDM, and you may not know this guy, Philip Hirsch. I don't know if that name rings a bell. He had something to do with something you were involved in called In the Cage.
Oh,
And he also on my side, and again, I don't know Philip. I was in the movie Any Given Sunday, so he had something to do there. I think maybe in sound. I don't know if you know what he was involved
I,
in on In
I,
the Cage.
I do. So, In the Cage was a fun, again, another one of those fun movies, kind of an experimental movie, if you will.
Right.
Many and AJ certainly was not as big as Any Given Sunday, right? I mean,
No.
uh, but Many and AJ was a gentleman I met, African producer and filmmaker, living up in the upper upper Riverside area of California. And at the time, I owned Explode Fight Series.
Right.
And so he was a struggling filmmaker, which was not a problem. We all struggle. But he had come to me and said, Greg, he goes, I'm making this movie, and would you help me out? I need a location. I know you have a cage, you have an event. And I just said, sure, why not? Right? It was fun. Right? I mean, I know that he's struggling to make the budget. So I didn't charge him a site fee. I ended up, I think he gave me an associate producer credit, and we ended up getting him about 5 or 6 different locations at no cost to him. Michelle Fonseca, who became a very, very close friend of mine, who actually runs one of the largest entertainment law firms in LA. She and I became super close friends. So there's the movie itself. I don't know if it made $3 or $3,000 or $300,000.
Right.
The friendships that were made were invaluable, and
There you go. There you go.
yeah. But I do
Um,
know who he was. I do remember him.
I
So
don't.
yes.
I don't. I mean, I was just fortunate. The story behind my thing, and this is about you, but real quick, the story behind me is I did a lot of business with Dan Marino, and if you've seen the movie or watched it, Danny's kid is in it. He actually is one of Al Pacino's kids from the movie, and the scenes where they have Al Pacino's home. That's actually Danny's home. And if you ever watch the film again, you'll see Dolphin blurred memorabilia, on the wall and stuff. But I was fortunate enough through Danny to kind of get into that movie, and what a movie, because it had so many. First of all, Oliver Stone, we all know about him, and of course it had so many of my ultimate favorite sports stars in it. He just had the late Johnny Unitas, the late Jim Brown. I'm actually in a scene with the late Jim Brown. So anyway, but I want to
So
get on to
let me
our
ask you a
relation.
question.
Yeah,
Let me ask you a question on that though, Doug. And here's my question: when you are on a movie set like that, and
yeah.
I've not been privy to be on a movie set like that, the dynamic of that cast. You had so many A-listers. You alluding to the fact that Dan Marino was assisting and had his child in it. I think that that's an amazing experience. You've got Al Pacino, you've got the up and coming Jamie Foxx, you've got like you said, you got Oliver Stone, directing. The question I have is, are there a lot of egos on that set? Are there a lot of guys that play the power play, or does a set like that really run smooth?
I didn't see it, and I think it just comes from the fact that, to your point, there were just so many people. I mean, just on the scene I was in, I had Pacino, I had Dennis Quaid,
That's
I
great. Yeah.
had Jamie Foxx, I had LL Cool J, you know,
Yeah.
James Wood. It was his last day of filming when I was there. Um, and to have all those people there, everybody's there really there for Oliver Stone, right? I mean, that's one of those pieces where the director drives his friendships. And I think that that's kind of a good segue into, where we are, because, when you look at Ollie Stone and people can say he's obviously made some, he's made movies to entertain, but he's used subjects like, George W. Bush. He's used subjects like, the JFK, and he's used Any Given Sunday to, basically the football industry. And he just hits the ball down the middle of the fairway. It's not a positive movie on the subjects, and it's not a negative movie on the subjects. It's an entertaining film that has potentially some truths, maybe some obviously I think every movie has to be have to have some writing behind it that has something entertaining. Otherwise, the story would just sit there. But one
Right.
of the things that I think that I saw there was commitment, not only by the actors, but by everybody that was involved with it, and the partnership of getting this job done. And that's one of the things I think that's attracted me to come on board with, the two things we're going to talk about. Is that, and I hope, hopefully, just from having this conversation about where you kind of came from and what you've been doing, that people see that commitment to partnership. And one of the things I really enjoy in our conversations up to now is been is your flexibility and your willingness to new ideas and partnership. It's really just more about how do we get the job done, and how do we at the end of the day, whether it's our sponsors, whether it's an advertiser, whether it's the people that are actually involved in the production, how do we all walk away and say, that was a great experience. To your point, sometimes we're not in control of the end run of what the experience is able to deliver on a thumbs up or thumbs down, but we are in control of delivering a great product and a great experience, within what we're trying to do. And I think that, your ability, and again, at a short term of knowing you, of networking, and just, if you and I have talked through a couple people that we know and situations that we know that are, have been bottlenecks or whatever, that we're always looking for the pot of gold, and how do we work through, how do we knock these bottlenecks out of the way so that we get the job done. And that's one thing that I appreciate about you. So tell me how that's kind of transcended into, tell us a little bit about World Series of Arm Wrestling, and what you've been able to do so far. And I'd love to know a little bit about, tell us a little bit about your live audience there, the people that actually come and see it, and some of the folks that, you have on staff that are kind of regulars or stars of your show.
Well, and I appreciate that. I use a motto, right? I mean, I say it a lot. I say small steps, right? And it means what it sounds like. I mean, everything we've done with World Series of Arm Wrestling to date has been small steps. The first small step in getting into an industry like this is understanding that it's a niche sport. It's not well received. It has never been well received in terms of mass audience. It is well respected. There's not a person in the world that's a male, and maybe some females at the time, that haven't put their arm on a table in a cafeteria, in a bar, or just wanted to see it, how they, matched up against that bigger guy in front of them. And when you start to look at the challenges of building a business, the very first challenge, I think, is figuring out what the mission and what the vision is. And that was my first challenge. I looked at the box and I said, the box is full with what we've done in the past, let's say 2 decades. Where have we missed outside the box, or where have we not gone outside that box to develop something that may have a chance to make it? And World Series really became a tournament-based system that had a prize money associated with it that would matriculate, if you will, Doug, from point one, which is the start of the season, to point 10, which is the end of the season, and look at how we get from 1 to 10. And then we did that. We did that the first year. It was successful. I think that we came up with a product that in itself was desirable. It was clean. It was efficient. It was. We took the understanding of self-doubt within the arm wrestling community because so many arm wrestling, entities had failed, and the number one reason is because of money. They promise the world, they don't have the world in the bank, and they turn around and they fail, right? And there's a level of forgiveness. I think the level of forgiveness in the sport is that so many others have failed that it's expected for you to fail. And so I think the very first thing that happened when we came on the scene was people were like, okay, so Gregg's going to give away. I think we gave away $30,000 the first year. Did four or five, six regionals, and he's taping it for TV. He'll never get it to TV, right? And so that was the first hurdle. The first hurdle was let's get the series done. Let's get people paid. Let's get people walking away saying, wow, he actually did it. And then let's get it on a platform that actually isn't YouTube. And there's nothing wrong with YouTube. I mean, it is the largest provider of entertainment in the world. And you could simply say that YouTube has become TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. And except for the fact that anyone can be on YouTube, right? Anyone can be on YouTube. All you got to do is have an email, you have a verification, and all you have to have is an iPhone or cell phone or some sort of camera. Take a video, whether it's short form, whether it's long form, upload it into its specific criteria, and now you're a YouTube publisher,
Right.
Your career starts. Where I didn't want to go, Doug, was I didn't want to be just like everyone else, albeit that some people make tremendous amount of money on YouTube. I wanted to get it to the streets. I saw Amazon, I saw Tubi, I saw at the time there was Crackle, multiple streams that were what I'll call resume-driven streams that may not pay quite as much or may pay more, but certainly put you in a different light as a director or producer, because now you're actually putting it somewhere where it's being accepted, quality controlled, and placed. So it took a while. That first year, the editing was rough. We had to do voiceovers. We had all the problems that a new production it would have, and we just grinned and bared it. And then we ran into getting it out. I mean, the timeline of taking something from finished product to being seen, it's not like YouTube. Like you just don't upload it to Tubi, and 2 days later you're a Tubi producer, right?
Right.
It takes weeks and sometimes months to get it there. And we shopped it out. Listen, we shopped it to multiple sources. We had at the time, and we had a verbal. So if anybody had asked, I would never be able to show you an actual agreement, although I could show you the emails. We had a verbal with Crackle where they wanted to take us on as a licensed exclusive content, which was amazing.
Right.
We looked at that as the best opportunity, and we actually sat for about 5 months in limbo because I felt it was better to do an exclusive licensed agreement that somebody else would market for me, that somebody else would put the time in behind it for me. And ultimately, lo and behold, the turn of that year came in January, and Crackle had a bunch of lawsuits waged against them. They weren't paying folks. They still, I shouldn't say they still aren't. I don't know that for fact or fiction. From my understanding, they're still going through the process of remunerating people. Again, I can't tell you that that's 100% true or not, but that's what I'm told. And now Crackle's not even on the scene anymore. And I think it was, I think the company ended up being out of England called Chicken Soup for the Soul. And I think Crackle, I don't know that it's on any stream at this point, but I don't know that they really exist. So we ran into that hurdle. We had all the naysayers saying, "Oh, he'll never get it out," and then we finally got it out. And like that, just like that, I'll put my hand up so you see the snap of the finger. We became legitimate in terms of being able to say we're going to do something and we're going to finish, and we did.
Awesome.
Fast forward, you look at the product and you say after season one, all right, well, we're going into season two. We've made no money, right? We've already made an investment. So we're either in for a dime or out for a dime. We're in for a dime, we're in for a dollar. We go into season two, we extend the regionals, and now I see the value of creating the stories behind the athletes. So we create a project and a product that becomes more of a docuseries than it does just an event. We go through season two, we get that done. Had some hurdles again in post editing, and timeline didn't hit that year, but we still got it out, got it done. Season two came out, it was very well received. So much well received that we started to get calls from other companies that wanted to see what we could do to work with them. Season three last year came and we changed around a few dynamics. As a good business person, we made the tweaks we needed to. And lo and behold, our product got really good.
Right. Yeah.
We got really good. And so the mark of being really good in the world of sports is when ESPN says we want your show, right? And so this past season, season three, which we air on August 2nd, I think it's a 6:30 a.m. Pacific time slot, but I have to make sure PST versus EST. We actually will show our first run of season three finals. It's a 30-minute program that we edited for them. We have actually a 14 episode season three ready to go, but it would make no sense for us to kill the town, if you will, and put season three up already. And in light of the fact that ESPN is really the benchmark, if you will, for sports, and why take away from being on the highest level and shoot yourself in the foot and put yourself on just regular streaming platforms. So we're ready for season three to get out there for the regular platforms and the stories and stuff. But season three finals will be on August 2nd, and we're pretty excited. And season four has developed. I mean, we're in a different product, we're in a different place, we have more competitors. We've got for the first time sponsors that have rallied behind us. I always say that no one spends Gregg's money better than somebody else. So this year I get to spend somebody else's money, or at least use those relationships to bolster what we're able to deliver. This year, I think we can safely say that the end prize money for the season will exceed $150,000 in cash and prizes, which from a very meager 28,000 and some gifted watches, which were very expensive but very nice watches from Rockwell, probably pushed us to maybe 48, 50,000 that first year, to now over 150,000 in year four.
Yeah.
We're doing something right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's amazing, and again, I think you're spot on. I mean, um, everybody arm wrestle at one time. I don't care even if you're the weakling at the school, and that was me probably, being an artsy guy, guy in band or something. I was more than willing to get up against that top athlete and get my ass kicked in an arm wrestling just because it's what we did as kids, and so I love it. I love the fact that you got it kind of grassroots. You're going from town to town. But to move the conversation forward, I mean, one of the things that you've been able to do is create now your own streaming service, which from my aspect with some friends that we're mutually tied to, that I've been trying to do with some content and just with a vision for kind of independent contact and good content, as we said. At the end of the day, just good stuff by a good crew, by people who are dedicated. You're ready to release Radiate. Tell us a little bit about what's going on there.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. It's so Radiate. Again, everything in my life has kind of developed in a way that makes sense to me. Doesn't always make sense to somebody else, but it makes sense to me, right? So Radiate came about because someone who is actually my chief tech officer, Jerry Carolerasso, found me at an arm wrestling competition and said, "Hey, man, what you do is super neat." And I said, "Okay, yeah, I guess I know. I've always tried to be humble. It is kind of neat, right? I mean, not you tell somebody that you're the CEO of World Series of Arm Wrestling or owner of World Series of Arm Wrestling. I think people are like, wow, that's pretty cool, right?
Right.
Uh, I don't know that gets me a free bowl of soup at any soup kitchen, but it certainly gets somebody to smile, right? And they'll look at your arms or my arms and they say, "You're a big guy. Did you arm wrestle?" And then you explain to them that there are levels to the sport, and my level is as a business person and not as a world champion.
Right.
Um, but I having that conversation with him, Doug, and he's telling me about fast channels. He's telling me about live linear TV. He's telling me about all of these, the world of technology. And I looked at him and I said, well, I've got something that I think might work better, or maybe be just as interesting. And the answer was I own RSG distribution. And so at the time we had, a little bit north of 50, 60 filmmakers on our roster. And I said, what if we created a fast channel for all of those folks, right? And had an RSG fast channel. And I stepped back and he said yes. He said, wow, that's a great idea. He was excited. And even to today, it's a great thing about working with Jerry. He's always excited when we get on the phone. I said, well, what if we had a streaming platform? I mean, well, let's kind of think about this for a second. Let's understand the dynamic and wants and needs, right? I want to have something that promotes my filmmakers. And what do I have? I have content. What do I need? I need faster delivery of a platform for people to go from being finished to being seen, but also give them the ability to be seen in multiple places, right? And so I said, okay, let's really start digesting this. I think the first thing I need to do is create a name. And it's funny because my daughter and I road trip all across the country.
Right.
And the value of road tripping is sometimes we play the radio voice game, or we play the England fancy voice game, and we'll look at signs and we'll say the signs, right? We'll go back and forth. And I noticed as I went through the country that a lot of names and words were hyphenated or acronized, and so I gave a list to my attorneys and I said, what's available? Out of 20, 0. It's like somebody already had them all. And I'm like, shit. I go, all right. So I came up with another 6, and Radiate, RAYD, the number 8, was available. And I said, well, let's get it, right? I mean, let's pay the money, let's pay the piper, let's get it, let's lock it in. And so we did. We didn't immediately go to Radiate, Doug. One thing about me, and I think it's because of my construction background, is that I don't put walls up in a house until I know I've poured concrete and it's cured, right? So we looked at Inside Arm Wrestling as our first fast channel, which was a WSA product.
Right.
And we made sure that we got it from A to Z, right? And we were lucky enough to create a relationship with Free Live Sports at that time to point it at a global leader in sports, which is, the old Tribe out of England, Tribe Network. And so once we got Inside Arm Wrestling done, we knew that we had a product, right? We could, well, I should say we have a process, not a product yet. So we have a process. So then we started the process on Radiate, and Jerry being the pusher of technology as he is, and eternal optimist said, well, let's do more. Let's do the other channels too. And I said, no, let's do Radiate. Let's get it done, locked in. And so we took a good 7 or 8 months, a fair amount of cash, and the timeline to be able to understand again, not just a platform. I think, again, people can put up a website and create a platform. I think that's easy.
Right.
And I don't mean that in a way that's a downward look at somebody. How do you create something that has value, right? And I think that's where we started to jump off the ship, if you will, and start swimming in the water, is that we want to create something of value. So we looked at the successful streams, or at least I did, and I said, okay, Tubi. How did Tubi start? Tubi started as an independent company that had 40 urban films on it.
Right.
and then ultimately sold for, I think, $180 million to Fox, right? So what sort of similarities? A, we've got urban films, we've got independent films, we've got those films, right? B, what's the other similarity? We have timeline, right? We have a finite timeline in which we can create a business that we're not rushed. Again, construction plays a huge part in my life. It gives me that I'm good where I'm at. Let me do it the way I want to do it. Sense of business sense, right? I think John Goodman had a famous scene with, maybe it was Mark Wahlberg or somebody, where he tells him, you take $2.5 million, you put it in the bank, and now every other job is an FU job, right? You don't want to do it FU, right? So construction has given that to me. It's given me the patience to be able to not rush.
Right.
Doesn't mean I haven't made mistakes, because I have,
Right.
but it's giving me the patience to be able to correct them and not feel as if the timeline is blown. Now, having said that, we got to the point where Radiate had soft launched maybe about a month and a half ago. And when I say soft launch, we didn't tell anybody. It was just more of a working launch to go back and forth, see what's there. Click on a button. We end up clicking on every button. We clicked on every button for a week in a row to make sure that every button worked. So that way, when we first said that we were actually up and running, we're actually up and running. We don't want that first person to click on the button and it goes wah wah, right? We want it to react and act. The second step is to be able to drive the advertising dollars behind it. Certainly, that's how we've come into contact now, and we're doing business. But how do we get sponsorships behind it? How do we get what we call ad value or ad ops? Advertising inside the streams in. We had to work through that. We have that now. How do we make sure that when somebody gets on the stream, that they have a chance to get paid,
Right.
right? And that's the biggest thing. Now, I can't guarantee anybody a payment today. We're just not big enough. But I can guarantee that if they have enough people watching their show, those ad dollars add up, just like a YouTube or YouTubey or anybody else, and they get paid on a level that's on par with all of the rest.
Right.
So we're in that infant stage, and that infant stage ultimately for us is we're now ready to grow, right? We're now ready to take on content, still working through some bugs on the portal, but we're ready to take on content. We're ready to put the advertising dollars out there out of our end to push the Radiate name. We did a live event for World Series of Arm Wrestling back in Riverside. Although the analytics weren't available to us, looking at the average view time versus the average broadband by delivery that we had, and we maxed out after 4 hours, we were able to kind of back in that we had anywhere from 15 to 25,000 people jump on that stream at some point throughout it all. And that's a huge accomplishment, right? I mean, that's a big number for a stream that's never been heard of.
Right.
And now we're in the middle of advertising, getting our apps downloaded through Fire, through iOS, through Roku's. We have the streaming platform that is running. And now it's time to fill the box, right? And filling the box means populating it with movies, with genre, with creative exclusives, with great relationships like we have, and bringing on people that are ultimately want a chance to be successful and use that, if you will, just like Tubi did, to become a household name. And that's where we're at. So Radiate is live, and we're excited.
Yeah, and I think just to close this, we're obviously in our relationship here looking to bring on sponsors, ad dollars, even product placement. So and I hope from our conversation here, everybody knows, and I can attest to this just in our conversations, that obviously we have some guidelines, we have different sponsorship levels and things like that, but ultimately. I think we want partners. We want people that want to grow together. And ultimately, I think the conversation has to have like you said, there always has to be some kind of a guideline, some kind of a process. But ultimately, I think we want to have the conversation with anybody and everybody that wants to grow with us. So I want to close it out because I know we could talk forever. But I want two fun questions, real quick, simple answers, and then I got one more real quick question. So, we're in an entertainment business. What's your favorite movie?
Whoa, that a quick answer or not? You know what? Equalizer. I think I've really grown to love the Equalizer franchise. Uh, you know, I think that's right now still my
Yeah,
favorite movie.
I'm with you. I love all three movies, and I hear that we're gonna have another one, so that's always good to hear.
Yeah.
And favorite sports star. Doesn't matter what sport, just who's your idols as a kid, or who have you always?
Wow, that's a. I'm gonna say two people, and
Okay.
and and one is going to be fairly well known, and I think one is going to be fairly unknown to most. Um, uh, Dr. J, growing up as a basketball player, I love the Sixers. He was the man. And then for whatever reason, growing up as a kid, I was a Houston Astro fan, and ultimately, a gentleman who worked with my dad's son, Craig Biggio, played for the Astros. Now, Craig is not my favorite athlete on the Astros, but when I was growing up, there was a guy who played for the Astros called Jose Cruz, and he was
Oh,
a left-handed hitter. And playing wiffle ball, when I switched hit, I was Jose Cruz in the box, and I had my
you,
bat with. And
you
you
gotta
know,
love it. I mean, that's what's got us here is this dreaming and whatever. So my last thing is the name of my show is Revelation of Spirit, and um, and for me, obviously, I grew up in a great family. Family's big with me. I'm a spiritual guy. My inner drive comes from my spiritual nature and where I came from, who I grew up with, my family today, my family in the past, and that's what gives me the charge to go out and meet people like yourself, interact, network with a bunch of great people out there, and get good quality stuff done. At the end of the day, you're right. I mean, dollars are dollars. I remember Al Pacino at any given Sunday telling me, I do these big films because they pay the bills. But I do when you see me doing the small stuff, the Broadway stuff, the whatever, that's my passion. Tell me a little bit. What's your driver? What's driven you to get to this conversation today, 30 years later? I know construction, you've been through a lot of different verticals, but what's the inner drive for you that's keeps you going?
oh wow, I would say building a family, building a family of people that uh, can trust in you, that can believe in you, that can uh, develop with you and can excel with you. I think that's the fun thing. I really do. At the end of the day, I think we all have a mission, right, and a drive. Uh, I think giving people an opportunity that wouldn't have one in the first place, that are extremely talented on a level that I can. I mean, I'm not Oliver Stone, right? I mean, but eventually, with some luck, maybe I'll have some of that same reach. But with better luck, the people that I work with and have called family will exceed that.
Right.
So I think that's the real value for me is watching people excel, and it brings me a lot of joy to
There
know
you
that we can, it's humanity, right?
Right,
So,
right.
so
Greg,
I guess humanity.
it's been great to talk to you. It's great to have you on the show. I really, really, really look forward to working with you down the road here on these projects. And have a great rest of the week. And I appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Absolutely, Doug. I appreciate you. I appreciate you 100%.
All right. Take care. Have a good day.
Thanks. You as well.